The European Masonic Order plan for 3 world wars used to effect the transition to their plans for a new world order. Is it a coincidence that the first 2 wars occurred as communicated in a letter from an American Luciferian to an Italian director of the Illuminati? You decide. Quote: Albert Pike received a vision, which he described in a letter that he wrote to Mazzini, dated August 15, 1871. This letter graphically outlined plans for 3 world wars that were seen as necessary to bring about the one world order, and we can marvel at how accurately it has predicted events that have already taken place. End quote. Albert Pike letter to Mazzini. The Illuminati plan for 3 world wars, August 15, 1871. The following is a letter that speculation claimed that Albert Pike wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini in 1871 regarding a conspiracy involving 3 world wars that were planned in an attempt to take over the world. The Pike letter to Giuseppe Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London until 1977. This letter has been claimed by many internet sites to reside in the British Library in London, which denies the letter exists. Point 1. Giuseppe Mazzini was an Italian revolutionary leader of the mid-1800s as well as the director of the Illuminati. Point 2. Albert Pike, historical Masonic figure, was a 33rd-degree Freemason, occultist, Grand Master and creator of the southern jurisdiction of the Masonic Scottish Rite Order. Following are apparently extracts from the letter, showing how 3 world wars have been planned for many generations. The plan for the First World War. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the Tsars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. The plan for the Second World War. The Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism is destroyed and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. Ask yourself if these 2 events happened as stated. Now, the plan for the Third World War. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agenter of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery and of the most bloody turmoil. Nihilism is a family of views within philosophy that rejects generally accepted or fundamental aspects of human existence, such as knowledge, morality, or meaning. Then everywhere, the citizens, obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries, will exterminate those destroyers of civilization, and the multitude, disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true I through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. This is the end of the letter. But let us get an understanding of the man that wrote this letter, from an autobiography of Albert Pike. Albert Pike's biography. Early life and education. Pike was born in Boston, Massachusetts, son of Ben and Sarah Andrews Pike, and spent his childhood in Byfield and Newburyport, Massachusetts. His colonial ancestors included John Pike, 1613-1688-1689, the founder of Woodbridge, New Jersey. He attended school in Newburyport and Framingham until he was 15. In August 1825, he passed his entrance exams and was accepted at Harvard University, though when the college requested payment of tuition fees for the first 2 years, he chose not to attend. He began a program of self-education, later becoming a schoolteacher in Gloucester, North Bedford, Fairhaven, and Newburyport. In 1831, Pike left Massachusetts to travel west, first stopping in St. Louis and later moving on to Independence, Missouri. In Independence, he joined an expedition to Taos, New Mexico, hunting and trading. During the excursion his horse broke and ran, forcing Pike to walk the remaining 500 miles to Taos. After this he joined a trapping expedition to the Llano Estacado in New Mexico and Texas. Trapping was minimal and, after traveling about 1,300 miles, 650 on foot, he finally arrived at Fort Smith, Arkansas. Settling in Arkansas in 1833, he taught school and wrote a series of articles for the Little Rock, Arkansas Advocate under the pen name of Casca. The articles were popular enough that he was asked to join the staff of the newspaper. Later, after marrying Marianne Hamilton, he purchased part of the newspaper with the dowry. By 1835, he was the Advocate's sole owner. Under Pike's administration, the Advocate promoted the viewpoint of the Whig Party in a politically volatile and divided Arkansas. He was the first reporter for the Arkansas Supreme Court. He wrote a book, published anonymously, titled The Arkansas Form Book, which was a guidebook for lawyers. Pike began to study law and was admitted to the bar in 1837, selling the Advocate the same year. Mexican-American War. When the Mexican-American War started, Pike joined the Regiment of Arkansas Mounted Volunteers, a cavalry regiment, and was commissioned as a troop commander with the rank of captain in June 1846. With his regiment, he fought in the Battle of Buena Vista. Pike was discharged in June 1847. He and his commander, Colonel John Selden Rowan, had several differences of opinion. This situation led finally to an inconclusive duel between Pike and Rowan on July 29, 1847, near Fort Smith, Arkansas. Although several shots were fired in the duel, nobody was injured, and the two were persuaded by their seconds to discontinue it. After the war, Pike returned to the practice of law, moving to New Orleans for a time beginning in 1853. He wrote another book, Maxims of the Roman Law and Some of the Ancient French Law, as expounded and applied in doctrine and jurisprudence. American Civil War. In 1861, Pike penned the lyrics to Dixie to Arms. At the beginning of the war, Pike was appointed as Confederate envoy to the Native Americans. In this capacity he negotiated several treaties, one of the most important being with Cherokee Chief John Ross, which was concluded in 1861. At the time, Ross agreed to support the Confederacy, which promised the tribes a Native American state if it won the war. Ross later changed his mind and left Indian Territory, but the succeeding Cherokee government maintained the alliance. Pike was commissioned as a brigadier general on November 22, 1861, and given a command in the Indian Territory. With General Ben McCulloch, Pike trained 3 Confederate regiments of Indian cavalry, most of whom belonged to the civilized tribes, whose loyalty to the Confederacy was variable. Although initially victorious at the Battle of Pea Ridge, Elkhorn Tavern, in March 1862, Pike's unit was defeated later in a counterattack, after falling into disarray. When Pike was ordered in May 1862 to send troops to Arkansas, he resigned in protest. As in the previous war, Pike came into conflict with his superior officers, at one time drafting a letter to Jefferson Davis complaining about his direct superior. After Pea Ridge, Pike was faced with charges that his Native American troops had scalped soldiers in the field. Major General Thomas C. Heineman also charged Pike with mishandling of money and material, ordering his arrest. Both these charges were later found to be considerably lacking in evidence. Nevertheless, Pike, facing arrest, escaped into the hills of Arkansas, sending his resignation from the Confederate States Army on July 12. He was at length arrested on November 3 under charges of insubordination and treason, and held briefly in Warren, Texas. His resignation was accepted on November 11, and he was allowed to return to Arkansas. Freemasonry. Pike first joined the Fraternal Independent Order of Odd Fellows in 1840. He next joined a Masonic lodge, where he became extremely active in the affairs of the organization. In 1859 he was elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction. He remained Sovereign Grand Commander for the remainder of his life, a total of 32 years, devoting a large amount of his time to developing the rituals of the order. Notably, he published a book called Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in 1871, of which there were several subsequent editions. This helped the order grow during the 19th century. He also researched and wrote the seminal treatise Indo-Aryan Deities and Worship as contained in the Rig Veda. In America, Pike is still considered an eminent and influential Freemason, primarily in the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction. Death and legacy. Pike died in Washington, D.C., at the age of 81, and was buried at Oak Hill Cemetery. Burial was against his wishes. He had left instructions for his body to be cremated. In 1944, his remains were moved to the House of the Temple, headquarters of the southern jurisdiction of the Scottish Rite. A memorial to Pike is located in the Judiciary Square neighborhood of Washington, D.C. He is the only Confederate military officer with an outdoor statue in Washington, D.C.
Because these devils are busy, we're going to hit you with these scripts. Genesis, chapter 27, verses 39 to 40. Isaac blesses Esau. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. They'll live anywhere and everywhere, and of the dew of heaven from above they shall have provisions. Verse 40. And by thy sword, that is weapons, shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother Jacob, and it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion or rulership, which they are in right now, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Isaiah 14, verses 11 to 14. Verse 11. Thy pomp, thy arrogance, and pride is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy viols, your music. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations, the Gentiles and the heathen? Isaiah 14, verse 13. For thou hast said in thine heart, thy mind, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of the Most High, the Israelites. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation, the Israelites, in the sides of the north, North America. And I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. I will be like the Most High. Job 9 and 24. The earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, the Israelites. If not, where and who is he? And lastly, 2 Esdras, verse 6 and 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it which followeth. Zephaniah, verse 3 and 8. Therefore wait ye upon me, saith the Lord Yahweh, until the day that I rise up to the prey. For my determination is to gather the nations, the Gentiles, that I may assemble the kingdoms, the territories, to pour upon them my indignation, even my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy. All praises to Most High Yahweh, in the name of the God and Son, Yahweh Shai Mashiach.